I just have a couple of quick stories. They're a bit on the sad side. Um, kind of. I might be able to throw some humor into at least the first one. Um, when, um, I know that it's pretty obvious when people look at me, like one side of my mouth is quite a bit higher than the other side, and they probably like wonder why. Like, I used to have like really nice shaped pouty lips, and like you could see it wasn't as noticeable when I was young, but it's getting a lot more noticeable now that I'm old. And so I just was gonna tell the reason why. um, we had when I was about 4.5, I went to visit my great grandfather, my dad's grandfather, in Iowa, and it was for the family reunion. He had a little dog named Lucy. She was like I want to say Pomeranian, but it wasn't that kind. It was fancier, um, in part dachshund, but she didn't have a long body. She just had the black and tan look. Took more after, I can't remember the name of that other dog. It's smaller than a Pomeranian, and it's got like pretty long hair from its ears and long fluffy hair on its tail. Um, anyway, she was a pretty little dog, but old. I think she was about 14, and we went out. He had built his log cabin for him and his for he first built a log cabin, and then for his wife, when he got married, he built her a beautiful um, 3, 4 story. He had a basement, 2 stories, and then an attic. Um, Big house. And we stepped outside the closed in porch, and outside the closed in porch to the left was a door that would go down into his basement. And so we were doing some things. He was getting ready to make some stools, and out of tree branches and tree trunk. So he had me wait there while he went in to get something. And while he went in, his little dog Lucy um, was outside with me, and she kept barking and barking, but she was looking down toward, like, he had a Angus Angus steer he raised, and a green bean farm with other things too. But he kept Lucy kept barking down toward where the woods would go, the direction that they would go hunting, and I I didn't know what was wrong. So I bent down, just kind of squatting, kind of next to her, and she kept barking, but now she started barking kind of at me and kind of at the other direction. And so, just like a kid would normally do, I just put my arm around her. I said, "What's the matter, Lucy?" And I didn't lean on her, I didn't anything. I was just kind of petting her lightly. And she just bit me right in the face. Bit me good. So I got holes in my face all the way over here and here, all down underneath, and started swelling up really bad. Naturally, I screamed. My grandfather come running. my parents were on site, so they came out and a lot of fuss and talk about, you know, getting me to see a doctor. And it was a Sunday, so there was no doctor available. They they couldn't afford a house call, um, even pitching in. Like nobody was available to answer, and whoever could was just too expensive. So they finally found somebody that I could go see. Um, I think was the next day, and no, it was that day. It was that evening, and I remember the man. He was really gentle and really nice, and he was talking to, especially my grandfather and my mom, about, you know, not making stitches because the stitches would um, leave scars, you know, and he didn't want to scar my face any worse than it was going to be. So he suggested just taping, and he taped it. It was like a pink tape with, it was like a skinny pink tape with the edges were like wavy. Um, and the pink was like the kind that women use for their hair back then. And gave me a sedative, a little tiny white pill uh, to break in half. My mother had to give it to me. So I went back home, but I was sleeping a lot. Now, this is during the Thanksgiving family reunion, and we were there early, and the family hadn't quite showed up yet. But my favorite cousin, John, boy, he was a handsome, good looking young guy. Uh, he was about 14 years old, 15, going on 15. And he was one of the first to come and see me. And I was sleeping with my face toward the back of my grandfather's couch, and my mom came up and said, "Someone's here to see you." I didn't want to see anybody because I was so ashamed of my face. It was so swollen and black and blue. Every time I tell these old stories, like I feel like I'm gonna break down. I'm gonna try to keep it together. Um, John Hoffman came, and it was just a knee-jerk reaction I had when he put his hand on my shoulder and asked me how I was, and I turned immediately when I felt his hand, and it was him, and I was like, I felt like my world shattered because I had a crush on him. He was just, not like a dirty crush. It was just a kid crush they know nothing about, incestual things. It was very clean. It had nothing to do with anything. Like, he was just so good looking, and he was sweet to me. So I think a good role model of what to look for in a husband. But yeah, I was crushed, and I just threw myself back against the couch and cried, and he felt really bad that he made me cry and went away sad. And I felt so sad for him. And my mom said, you made him feel pretty bad. He came to see you, and you made him feel bad. And I felt bad about it. Um, it hurt. The, the lip hurt for a good while, hurt to talk. But the bite went all the way through, and the scars are um, inside. And I think here and one along here somewhere. But what happened is, it caused muscle paralysis. It was a powerful enough bite, that the nerves never woke up, and so over time it just keeps falling more and more down. But I used to have this, like, it's a very deep widow, or widow, I want to say widow's peak. That's over here. I don't have that. A very deep cupid bow with also this little piece of the lip that would stick out a lot. Stuck out a lot. Um, it's all dwindling with the, also I have a muscle disorder. Um, it's either ALS or myasthenia gravis. But ever since that started affecting me, the face, the face is, the muscles are weakening. But so that's the one story when you see why I'm weird looking. um, and where did it go? So I know these pictures are so hard to see with this stupid camera, but you can see my grandfather building a fire and me standing right there, looking intently in there, watching exactly what he did. And because of the photographic memory I have, I build a fire exactly like he did. Every one time when we lived in New York, I built a fire in our fireplace. I'm in like my late 20s, early 30s. Yeah, I didn't turn early 30. I didn't turn 30 until we lived there for about four years, but it was before that. So I was in my late 20s, and I built this fire in there on the fire rack that was so hot and burnt hot for so long that it melted the rack. My grandfather, he had a much thicker rack, but I guess I must have missed something he did, because his didn't melt, but mine did. I overdid it. He must have had a way of creating a vent so that air will take the heat more up instead of keeping it in a ball. All I witnessed was keeping it in this intense ball and like staggering them in a staggered, piled fashion. Um, yeah, and getting the thickest, hottest piece in the middle and building it every so often because I loved it super hot. But anyway, that's he had different floor, different bottom to his. His was completely against the ground, where mine was not. His house was built to take tornadoes. Yeah, he built a good house. It stood. Didn't get hit, but for those winds, it stood nicely, and it could have withstood it. But anyway, the next story is about a little girl in my neighborhood in Long Island. I have more stories about Long Island because Long Island back in early 1970s was absolutely a paradise, like a fantastic place. I have so many stories to tell about that place and living there and moving there. You will really like to hear those stories, so come back and listen. But there was a little girl, so we all lived in a circle, and there were like two houses here, a few houses around the edges, and two houses in the back. But there were also along this side a couple of houses, a few houses, and I think along this side. So it was a Coast Guard family base housing, and one road in, surrounded by wild woods, wild. It was Huntington Beach, California, Huntington Beach, Long Island. But at that time, it was raw. Like, I don't know how all these creatures came to be there because, as I understand, Long Island is a man made beach, man made island, but there was wildlife there like you would not believe. Um, so, Colorado, you got nothing on New York. Nothing whatsoever when it comes to wildlife. You don't have wildlife. When you compare yourself to New York, you have nothing. Just say, I got nothing. My pockets are empty. I could tell you stories about New York wildlife. Um, that'll blow the doors off Colorado. But so I used to play with a little girl that lived along the far edge. She was really like her backyard was straight into the woods, like woods, and there was the road that went around. So I would have to come out of, say this is my house. I would come out of my back door and cut across the field and go between houses, and then her house was there. I have difficulty remembering her name because I only heard it a couple of times. So I have the names Gwendolyn, Wendy, and Wilhelmina. It was a W somewhere in there, but I remember I hadn't heard the name at 5. I hadn't heard the name before, and I thought it was a strange name. But and she was toe blonde with really really pale blue eyes and fair skin, and her hair was like kinky curly, um, very I'll think of the word. I'll think of the word if I could think of it. Um, you'll hear me say it later if I remember. Um, but anyway, she and I used to go swing on this swing. When I explain this swing to you, it was towering even to a grown up. I can't understand or justify why they made such tall swings for kids back then, but this swing was unusually high. And she was out there every day that she could be out there. Every chance she got, she would go out there and she would swing as high as she could and encourage me, swing with me, swing with me, go get up here with me. She wanted me to be as high as she was and as high as she was. So as I gained skill, now she was standing on the swing and pumping hard, like crouching down and pushing up really super hard as she could to get as high as she could. And she kept encouraging me to keep up with her. And I was trying, she had gained like a lot of leg strength. She was my same age, but she just gained a lot of leg strength because she did it every day. And she was gaining leg strength. So I was getting closer and closer, but I was getting scared because every time, see, I was more scientific minded than her in certain ways because my dad took me out and he was always explaining things to me, always teaching me how things worked. He would give a what if scenario, like, which I never understood. I always threw what ifs back at him in the wrong way. But what if, trying to test my knowledge, trying to get me to think for myself and find out what the right answer would be. So naturally, when I was getting up there and I was holding on and I felt the chain go limp and my feet going up and my head going back, and I'd have to push forward to get that corrected. I felt like this swing is gonna go up and it's only gonna go so far before it's gonna turn upside down and dump me out. I've been dumped out of a swing, but not from swinging that high. Um, I was mainly there because as an autistic kid, I loved it being so tall because I could twirl, I could twist that thing up, and I could twirl let it go and untwirl for a really, really long time, and it would go the opposite direction. It would keep, once it was done with that, it would wind up again on its own. And I loved the thing, but she wanted me to go up there with her, and I kept noticing, like, there's something wrong. I can't get up as high as she can without feeling the tension release on the swing. And now my legs were almost level with my my head, and I'd get up just a little bit higher, and I'd feel that feeling where it just felt like it's wobbly now. I was sure I was gonna fall. Maybe it was a height difference between us. She might have been a little shorter or something. So I hadn't come back for a little bit. um there was different reasons why I didn't show up as often as she did. Some of it was autism, some of it was weather, I hated the cold. She'd be out there even if it was cold. And sometimes it's just my parents didn't want me out and about because it wasn't convenient. But she I went out there to go swing one day, and she wasn't there. And I came back. I told my mom she wasn't there, and she's not there, and felt disappointed because that was the time when she would always be there, that day. And my mom said, um, I didn't tell you, but there was she had an accident. Um, she was found, and this is her exact words, she was found dead under the swing. And a rush of the most crushing feeling, just a feel. I had no words. I couldn't talk to her. I couldn't say a word. Just this feeling, and then also a feeling of guilt. I worried that, because she told me once, I want to go all the way around. That's the part I left out. I meant to say, I want to go all the way around. She thought she would have enough to go all the way around. Now, I didn't comprehend as 5 that she wouldn't have enough to go all the way around. I just felt like somewhere about the height I was and she was, between there, she might fall. But I didn't understand that it would lead to her not being here anymore. And I completely comprehend that because I had an experience at 2 years old that I wouldn't be here anymore, and mommy would cry because I wouldn't be here anymore. So I understood death, but I didn't comprehend it. It didn't, the whole bunch of pieces didn't come together for me. But hearing it, they came together. And I felt guilty because I didn't tell somebody, but I didn't know I should beforehand. I only knew I should have after, but I couldn't have known. Like, I was too young and couldn't make sense of the big picture. And just this crushing guilt that kept me silent and feeling sad over my friend and knowing I'm not going to see her, I'm not going to play with her anymore, and I'm going to miss her. I missed her today. So yeah, that's a pretty hard life lesson, for a 5-year-old, I think. But it always, even though being autistic, it's not a it's not that it's a deficit. It's just we don't always think the bad. We're very optimistic, so we don't, when we put ourselves in risky situations. And I'm pretty sure she was autistic too, because she was obsessed with this going around, and she was it was giving her a sensation, a pleasurable sensation, and she wanted it more and more every day. She wanted to be better and better at it. But like times when um, I was, I got myself into stupid things like trusting my vicious, weird next door neighbor to talk me into getting into a grocery buggy. I don't even know how it got where we lived. Somebody had to put it on a truck because no one could walk it from the store to our place where we lived. Um, but she got me into this grocery buggy and was pushing me. There was like a hill up out, and then it went down and went out straight for a really long ways, and then way to heck and gone would be the Kmart, the first Kmart they built. And so she talked me into getting into that and was laughing the whole way up the hill, and I didn't understand. I didn't put two and two together. I knew the laughing didn't sound right. It troubled me, but I didn't know why. I didn't know what kind of laughing it was, but I knew it wasn't familiar, and unfamiliar things sometimes turned out bad. So I kept asking her, "What are you laughing about? What are you Oh, nothing, nothing." And she'd shut up for a couple of seconds and continue running up the hill as hard as she could, pushing me out. She was a little bit older, a couple of years older than me. Got to the top of the hill and laughing her fool head off, pushed the buggy down the hill. And it went down, but as the road kind of had a slight rain drainage curve, it started going toward the ditch, and there was a big, fairly deep ditch, about a foot and a half, in some places 2 feet or deeper. And the buggy went in it and turned over, and since I was in it and rolled over and was upside down when it flipped upside down, that flap in the back that holds the kid's seat, it went upside down and smacked me really super hard on the head. Just about knocked the living daylights out of me. I've had so many TBIs, I can't even count them anymore. I'd have to sit for a good while and count them. Plus the toddler ones, you don't remember. I mean, I remember being 2 in Colorado, near Lakeside, swinging on a swing, and I'd gone there later and as an adult, and I could remember everything, but things had changed. And I'm like, but I'm seeing the scenery, but things have changed. I see it exactly like this, but things had changed. So photographic memory, but things had changed. So yeah, I was trying to swing with no hands at that time. I was in love with swings. I was trying to swing with no hands, and um, I was trying to like sit there and put my arms on the sides of the thing and let go of it somehow, because somehow I had in my mind like this little girl had something in her mind. I can do this. Swing. And yeah, I was swinging with. I got where got myself up there, and then I wanted to let go. I wanted to be free and swing, and I let go, but it was high enough that it dumped my little child-sized, oversized head back, and when I landed, it just happened to be a rock this big, and I hit the back of my head on it and blooded myself good. And yeah, that was another swing accident. uh, yeah, I had to get picked up from that one because I couldn't even get up. But so swings, and we get ourselves in these dangerous situations. My dad and mom got me a miniature realistic baby buggy, from, it was like a 1950s style, fabric with the big rubbery wheels, um, kind of like a Cadillac. They call those baby buggies Cadillac. My mom had one for me, so when she saw this, I guess they bought it for me because it was a toy, identical to the grown-up one. So big enough though that not only a doll could fit in there, but a real baby could. And my neighbor kid, Chris, the one who had a dog named Jude, a black lab named Jude, who was brother to my dog Poncho, uh, my yellow lab Poncho. He was 3. He was a couple years younger than me, but he wanted to get in the buggy and be a baby. I wanted to be my baby, so I gave in, let him get in, and stupid little wiggly kid wouldn't stay seated. No, no, no. He had to stand himself up and shook the buggy bad enough that I didn't have the strength to hold it, and my trying to keep him from getting hurt, I went down with the buggy. Didn't want the buggy to break either, so I'm saving him, saving the buggy, and at my own expense. And he jerked as he did it, so it scraped my knuckles really hard against the pavement. I still have those scars to this day where it had went down and scraped the bone. And my dad, thinking I'm always making up just to get, he had like negative, his dad was a schizophrenic, so he was paranoid schizophrenic. My dad told me when he found out later that he always thought the negative, always thought someone was trying to get something up on him, and it kind of, that thinking and upbringing kind of rubbed off on my dad. Not that my dad wasn't schizophrenic, but the thinking that someone's always making it up and trying to get sympathy, or making it up because they're telling a lie, or my dad was pretty plagued with that sort of thing, and accused me that, it didn't really hurt that bad, and I'm just trying to get sympathy. While meanwhile, I was on the verge of vomiting. Now I have an iron stomach, and the only thing that made me ever vomit was a kidney infection, and having girls. My girls made me really, really, really super, super sick. The whole entire pregnancy with severe, like I got thrush and everything because I couldn't hold food down for so long. But even when I could hold food down, I still nauseated. So like I have an iron stomach. One time I had the flu and I couldn't vomit. It was the stomach flu and I couldn't vomit, and the stuff went the other way. It just ruined my guts. It ruined me so bad because it should have come out. But enough of that. What I'm trying to say is I was injured really super bad, and I mean that thing, you know, it, my bones were little. It could have broke my bones. If it had, I wouldn't have known because it scraped them bad, the bones so bad, and it took forever to heal. But yeah, so autistic kids, just, it's not that we're dumb. We just have a different way of thinking a matter out. Like we're not the other type that just will say, "Oh, I'm gonna get hurt." We're not so smart. We're just saying, "Oh, I'm gonna get hurt. I'm just gonna let it go." No, we're smart. Like I'm gonna like try my best, and I'm gonna not let this person get hurt, and I'm not gonna let my parents down by letting my buggy get broken. And that's how we think. So nobody needs to pride themselves on how they're smarter than an autistic kid. We think a lot of stuff. What we do might look dumb to somebody, but it's really not. It's quite a lot of thinking goes into it, and like we thinking we can slide down the stairs on our bellies And then when reality comes, we're tumbling down, but it's because we've got it calculated. If I keep my arms out straight, if I keep my head up, if I push down, like a lot of things. But kids don't understand that their heads make them top heavy, and that interferes with a lot of their calculations. And no neurotypical is gonna think, oh, my head is top heavy and that's going to mess up my calculations, because they're not making calculations. They're just going, I'm going to do this or whatever. But the autistics are planning, we're strategizing, we are figuring it out before we try. We're coming up against the top of the stairs every single day for months on end, and mom and dad never know that we're trying to imagine, okay, every scenario, how it's going to go, how it's going to go. Do I need a blanket? No, that'll make me slippery, more too slippery. Like, believe me, at 5 years old, we're thinking. But those are just a couple of little stories to share. Uh, I'm a person, I tell the bad with the good. You know, that's life. The bad with the good. I'm not one of those, hey, my whole life is wonderful and I only think positive and I only attract good things to myself because I've got this energy that I'm super powered and I can attract. No, I'm real. Okay? Bad happens, good happens. Bad happens to good people and bad people. Bad happens to good people and bad people. Good happens to good people and bad people. It's fair to all. If you sleep a lot, you live longer. If you sleep short and you are awake more, your life is shorter, but you still get the same amount of living as the person who sleeps a lot, or in hours, awake hours, right? Okay, so God is fair. It's a matter of how you spend it. You get your wad and then you spend it your way. And then there are such things as unforeseen occurrence that befall us all, and that happens to good people and bad people. It rains on the good and it rains on the wicked. So good and bad people get their houses and cars washed by rain, and their green grass grows. You know, not everybody who has a bad life turns out to be bad, and not everybody who has a good life turns out to be good. Nobody's got a superpower on this. Anyway, that's it for this story, and I hope that you enjoy my videos. And thanks for watching and having the patience to listen to someone tell stories about their life, um, and listen, even though I'm not the best narrator and don't have the best vocabulary or concept focus to tell the story straight. But anyway, that's it. Pushing the button.